Hey, fellow bridge burners, this is Austin. Welcome back to the Beats Motel. So, as always, check in, sit down, relax, and enjoy your stay. So, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise video. Maybe to some, but not to others. I finished Gardens of the Moon a month early. I know I've been telling y'all that I'm going to try to hold off and finish it in February. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. The book just, I don't know. I loved it this go around. I guess the only way to put it. So we're gonna do, because of how big and significant this series is, I'm kind of gonna change how I do my normal reviews. And if I like the format and the flow of this, I might just start doing it for all my reviews. But let's get into it. How my new review system is going to work specifically for Malazan Book of the Fallen. We are going to use the good, the bad, and the ugly system is what I'm going to call it. Yes, I did steal that name from the Clint Eastwood movie, one of my favorite movies of all times. Essentially, kind of breaking it down, the good is going to be, the things I liked about the book or the things in the book. The bad is going to be, things that I didn't like necessarily. I'm not bashing on the book by any means, but just things, I wish would have, been a little different or changed or hope change in the future in the, later on in the series. The ugly is going to be a certain session where I'm going to talk about things that I think some people might have an issue with the book. Not saying that I have an issue with those things, but just knowing that there might be some people out there, a certain niche or group that would have an issue with it, because when I do these book reviews, I want to keep it unbiased. I've seen some reviewers where they just bash on books or they praise books and they swear by it, and people take their word as gospel, and I don't want that to be the case. In my opinion, reviewing these books, it's going to be, letting you know, hey, what, do I think it's worth it? Yeah, if you're kind of, what you like is in turn with me, you probably would enjoy it. But that's kind of how the new ranking or, review system is going to work, and we're going to try it and work out the kinks. So we're going to start off with just some background on Malazan as a whole. So Malazan originally, as a lot of people probably already know all this information, but I'm going to reiterate it. Malazan started off as a D&D game between Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont, I believe is his name, back in like the 80s or the 90s. I think it was the 80s and whatnot. So what they did was they tried, making a movie out of it, specifically Gardens of the Moon. What they did was they took it over to, I guess, Hollywood or wherever. And, a lot of, people in the industry were very interested in it, but they told them, hey, you're going to have to change this, and this, it's going to be too expensive. And if you read the book, if you get halfway in the book, you'll realize, yeah, this would be an expensive show to make or expensive movie. I would absolutely love to see it. I really hope they turn this into a show specifically, just for how much stuff is packed in there. I think, in all honesty, it would cost way more than what Game of Thrones ever did to produce and whatnot. But again, like I said, they took it to studios and they told them they had to change this, and they said no. We want to keep it as it is. So Steven Erikson then proceeded to, put it in book format so you can read it. Not necessarily like a manuscript or anything like that, but an actual book form, so like a novel and whatnot. And then he ended up getting a 10-book deal. The publishing or publisher fronted him so much money for a 10-book deal in the series. And as we know now, he did complete those 10 books, which I think would be a little daunting, personally. But who am I? I don't write nowhere near as good as amazing as this this book was. I'm sorry if I kind of look over here and the screen shakes a little bit. I have my tablet set up here with my notes on this. Gonna do, like I said, a little bit more in depth review than I normally do. But we're gonna start it off with the good. Again, this is gonna be what I liked in the book. So we're gonna start off. It is action packed. I've heard a couple people say, the books, it's not, super actiony, it's not, it's more of a character study and whatnot. And again, I've tried not to listen to too much just because I don't want any spoilers when it comes to this series in particular. But you will discover very quickly into this book that it is very action-packed. I enjoyed the action very much. He is not one to shy away and tell you, what, this is how they fought. It's not a, what, make it up in your own mind. I personally don't like that, but I'm not going to double on that because we were talking about the good, and that is not the case with this book. Like I said, it's very action-packed. Every step of the way what's going on within the fighting and whatnot. I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free, but I mean there's battles, there's swords, there's wizards, there's duels, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of different action in here. It's not just straight up battlefield action. And this is a military based fantasy series. What I've heard a lot of people, or most people, call it, and I could see that. I really can. Looking at back now, this being my second time reading this book, I really could see that it is a kind of a military based fantasy series, if you will, thus far. Excuse me. I had to get some tea there. Going to the next point are the different cultures. There's just, you barely scrape the surface when it comes to this series, or this world, if you will, in this first book. And it's not a thin book. It's a pretty dense book, a pretty deep in dive into, this world and whatnot. We barely scratch the surface. And it has me very interested to see, the different, aspects of all these different cultures that are, contained in this world. All the mythology, which is the third point, is the mythology in this world is just amazing. You barely, again, scratch the surface. And, there's gods at play in this book, mixed in with humans. And it just, it makes me want to know more about the mythology in this series, or this world, if you will. I really hope that continues, into the series. I'm sure it does. But just kind of find out all this mythology that has to deal with this world. The next point, and it is related to why I'm wearing a Woodsboro Ghostface Scream shirt, is because, like one of my favorite horror movies of all time, Scream, no character is safe in that franchise. No character is safe in this book series. I mean, you really aren't. I've heard, again, some people say don't get too attached to characters. Again, I try not to listen to a whole lot of people when it comes to this series, just because I don't want to take the possibility of it spoiling anything for me. But I can agree with them. Don't grow attached to characters, because, like in Scream, everybody is everybody's what's the term? Everybody's a suspect, if you will. Everybody has the possibility to die, because this book, while it is a fantasy book, he tries to make it realistic in the fantasy genre. I mean, again, anybody can die at any point. So which I think is awesome, because you'll grow to like these characters, over time. Thus far in this book, I've found quite a few characters that I really like. I'm hoping they survive the whole series, but I know there's a good chance they probably won't. Next, like I said before, is this world. This world is huge. I think we touch on one specific continent, maybe two, barely. But it's so vast and so grand. It's just amazing how much world building is done within this one book, and we barely have scratched the surface. I mean, you really are left wanting to find out more and more about this world, and what's in there, the continents, the vegetation, the animals. I mean, just everything you can about this world. And, certain continents, you want to find out everything. Next is a unique magic system. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not read a whole lot of fantasy books, but from what I understand, this magic system in here is, unique. It's one of a kind. From what I've read in this book, again, I really enjoy the magic system. I mean, I can't speak too much as far as, it's not like, Brandon Sanderson or J.R.R. Tolkien. I have read, The Way of Kings, and I've read The Lord of the Rings, and the magic system in here is a lot different than those, which I find very, refreshing and whatnot. Again, I haven't read too much fantasy, but just finding one that has its own, I don't know how that got on there, that has its own, unique magic system, I think is awesome. I think it separates this series, from other ones, specifically this book. Like I said, I can just keep babbling on and on about the unique magic system. One thing I will note, I don't think the characters in here really know their own magic system. I mean, they're in this world. I don't think they fully understand the magic system themselves. There's some characters that, kind of, you think they know more than what they let on, but, obviously we're not told. But I don't even think, like I said, I don't think a whole lot of people in this world even understand the magic system of the world that they live in. Next is going to be, there's no throwaway characters in this book. And what I mean by that is, this is, excuse me, like I said when I did my, why I'm going to read, or, why I'm deciding to pick up Malazan, everybody talks about how many characters there are, and, this book has a glossary of all the characters. and whatnot. And you do meet a lot of characters. I don't even remember. I think it's like 50 or 60 characters, what you meet in this book. I could be wrong. My numbers are probably off. But not a single one of them was a throwaway character. Even minor characters in this book were not, even though they were minor characters, they were not throwaway characters. I have a feeling they will be people that come back later on in the series, which I really enjoy because, you know, again, you're getting introduced to all these different characters, but yet they all keep coming back around. Even minor characters, like I said, they have some important part to play in the book. Even though they're not on the forefront, you don't see a whole lot of them. They're still important, which again, you know, I really, really enjoyed because again, I hate having a character be like, hey, you know, this is so and so. We never see him again. I don't like that. I never have. So it's refreshing to see that in a book, specifically, you know, especially if he keeps up in the series. I'm really gonna enjoy that. You know, I'll definitely have to, you know, keep track of the minor characters and kind of put a little bit notes and information as far as kind of remind myself again, just because there's already been a whole lot of characters, you know, already in this book. Next is going to be, you know, related to those characters. You know, you never underestimate any of these characters. Like I said, they may be minor, but they come back and have an important part. So again, don't underestimate any character in this series, or specifically Guards of the Moon. Well, if you're gonna read this, don't underestimate any characters. Even though you might think, you know, well, you know what, they're just kind of a throwaway character. They're not. I promise they're not. Don't underestimate any characters. Most of the characters in this book, I feel like, know more than what we're led to believe or what they led on. Um, Next is again, you know, this book thus far. It's not been like any, you know, book that I've read. Again, you know, it's not like Way of Kings. It's not like the Lord of the Rings. It's unique in of its own. Another thing that I really really liked about this book, and I had to throw it in there, and I wanted to say something about this on the reviews, and I don't think I have. I might have. If I have, I'm sorry. No really spoilers here, but again, I have to throw this out. There's a certain character in here um, that made me think of Jester in the Puppet Master movies. That's all I'm going to say. As soon, you know, once that, if you've read this before, you'll know, or if you read it, you'll see that, you know what I'm talking about. And I could not get over it. Every time something happened, it popped in my head, and I loved it. It made it amazing. Again, I love that. I had to throw that in there. The biggest thing that I took away from this, like I said in a little bit beginning of this video, I believe, was, you know, this is my second read through of this book because I'm trying to deep dive into it. The rereadability of this book, I mean, there are things that I've forgotten, which is to be expected. But the fact that, you know what, it made it, rereading it, I understood things a little bit quicker, was able to also catch on to certain things that I didn't notice before. And just after finishing the first book for the second time, I can honestly say I see why people say they reread this series. I could definitely see this, you know, if I enjoy the series and every book is better than this one. I've heard some people say this is the weakest book out of the series. If that's the case, this will definitely be a series that I will reread. Maybe not, you know, once a year or anything like that, excuse me, but maybe like every 10 years. I could definitely see myself rereading the series just to kind of pick up on things, especially those things that you never noticed before, little subtle hints that you picked up on. Again, the fact that this is my second read through and I already picked up on so much more that I didn't my first read through has really made me realize, again, you know, like I said, I sound like a broken record, but I see why people will reread this series. Again, it's amazing the things that I picked up, or little nuances that I picked up that, you know, your first read through you didn't notice, but the second one, okay, you know, I noticed that, makes me think, you know, what happens on the third or the fourth read through, like it just makes the book flow a lot, you know, smoother, which kind of leads me into, you know, the one thing that I had an issue with this book was the no separation of jumping from character to character. What I mean by that is there is a lot of, you know, POVs in this book, but you'll be in the middle of a chapter, and you know what? Instead of having a little page break, there's times where, you know, you'll read a paragraph and the next paragraph is, you know, a different character, and you're like, wait, let me go back. I thought we were on this character, and you realize, you go back, you're like, oh, well, there was no nice, you know, I can't even think today. There's no nice segue in this other character. It's just a, you know what, we're reading here. Oh, okay, we're going to go over here and we're going to talk about this character. And we're going to read, you know, this character. Sorry, all this talking is making me thirsty. Making me talk a little quicker too. Again, that is the only issue that I really had with this. And again, it's not the jumping around from character to character. When you had that nice little, you know, page break about that much, so you know, okay, you know what? Probably starting with a new character. It's read this. Okay, this next sentence. Oh, we're already starting. We're somebody new, and then you have to go back and reread it to figure out, you know, where you're at and what character you're with. That was the only thing that I really had that I didn't like about this book. And again, and even then, it's kind of a nitpick, if I'm being honest. Just asking for that extra eighth of an inch space so I know that we're segueing into a different character. Again, that's the only really nitpick that I had with this book, which in all honesty, I couldn't tell you how many great things to say about this book, but one bad thing, I think that's a win in this book's direction. You know, kind of getting into the ugly, just some things that I noted, that might rub some people the wrong way, and you might like it, may not. Again, I'm not saying that I did or I did. It didn't make a difference to me, but I know there's some people that may not like it. As everybody said before in previous videos, and I'm sure they'll say in the millions of videos to follow of people starting this series or reviewing the series, you are just thrown in. You're not handed, you know, okay, you're not handed, hey, this is character, this is what's going on. No, it's a, all right, we're just going to get thrown in, kind of sink or swim, if you will. We're going to give you just enough little bit air bubbles to kind of help you stay afloat. It's up to you if you stay afloat or not. So that might not, some people may not like that. Again, I'm sorry, I cannot speak today. I have to wrap this video up here in the next couple minutes. Next, there is no traditional good guys or bad guys in this. And now, I will say in this day and age with fantasy books, you know, obviously that is not an uncommon thing to see in book series. You know, grimdark, stuff like that has come out that's made, you know, people, that's made people realize, you know what, I do enjoy that. I know some people probably don't, if you like the traditional fantasy, you know, the J.R.R. Tolkien's, the, you know, the Terry Goodkind, I might have made some people mad with that reference there. You know, just the black and white good guy, bad guy. The best comparison I have is, you know, John Wayne Cowboy versus, you know, Clint Eastwood Cowboy. John Wayne would never shoot anybody in the back. He's a good guy. Whereas Clint Eastwood, he don't care. He's a good guy, but he'll still shoot you in the back, but he's still a good guy. That's the best comparison that I have. Next is going to be, there is a lot of POVs. Like I said, there's a whole lot of characters in this book, which I enjoyed. Some people may not. Again, I'm not ragging on you if you don't want that. I just want to throw this out there. I know a lot of people have already said this. There's a million characters. Don't be overwhelmed, especially if you're going to start this book. Try the book, see if you enjoy it. You know, there's, like I said, there's a glossary and whatnot. But again, if you're not a fan of a lot of, you know, point of views, may not be the book for you. But again, I would always recommend try this book. Again, take what I say with a grain of salt. The last thing that I will note, that, you know, some people may or may not like, the chapters are very long. What I mean by that is you might have like a 20-minute chapter, but you might also have a chapter that's like an hour and 25 minutes, which I know is weird to know, but I was reading a lot of this on my Kindle before I went to bed at night, and I kind of noticed that. And some people, again, that may not be a big issue with. The only thing that I had to kind of nitpick, I guess I didn't even throw this in there, is if you had a chapter that was, you know, an hour and 20 minutes. Sometimes, you know, the author will give you that little dash in there, that little break, so if you want to stop and point. He doesn't in this book that I noticed. You don't get that, so just know if you're gonna, you know, sit down and read this, if you're fine stopping in the middle of a chapter, hey, you know what, that may not be a big issue for you. But if you're one like me where you don't want to stop in the middle of the chapter, you just want to finish the chapter and then you'll stop at the next chapter and go to bed. Again, you know, this was not really a big issue for me having the long chapters. Again, it's just a little nitpick that there's nothing there to kind of separate, so you have a nice stopping point. Again, I just throw this out there because I know some people may or may not like it. Again, try to keep this review as unbiased as I possibly can. I know it probably sounds like I'm very one-sided and that I love this book. I'm not going to lie, I did. I liked it the first time I read it through. This time I liked it even more. Now we're gonna go. You know what? I figure I throw in my favorite character. I don't have a particular favorite character, if I'm being honest. Uh, maybe, maybe Whiskey Jack. It's too early to tell, in all honesty, because we jumped around so much. You don't get a whole lot of background on people in this series, at least in the first book. Like I said, my favorite set of characters, though, my favorite chapters to read or favorite sections were the bridge burner sections. I think a whole lot of people would agree that that's probably going to be their favorite sections to read and whatnot within at least the first book. But again, you know what? I very much enjoyed, reading about them and whatnot. That group. I couldn't say enough how much I liked reading those sections about them. If I noticed that it was another 40-minute long chapter, but hey, we're starting off with the bridge burners. Didn't care how tired I was. I was gonna try to push through it. If I had to get out of bed and go sit on the couch in the living room, I was gonna do it just because I enjoyed reading about them so much. But again, you know what? Like I said, I'm trying to keep this stuff unbiased. Again, I can't help it. I really, really enjoyed reading this yet again, which makes me so excited to dive into the next book. I'm having a little bit of a TBR crisis right now because I want to start this book uh, and dive right into it. I'm still trying to wrestle with myself. I think I'm going to give in and start the next book, which is going to kind of mess up my TBR a little bit, but I'll adjust it as accordingly and whatnot. But again, like I said, that's my analysis and my reviews of Garden of the Moon. If you stuck through this video long enough to see this, again, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. If you kind of jumped around and seen this, I appreciate you too. Subscribe. If you're already subscribed, I greatly appreciate it. If you're reading this series or you've already read it, let me know what you thought of book one. If you had any nitpicks or you have any, suggestions, let me know. Like I said, thus far, I'm enjoying this series. I'm really happy with my choice, kind of deep dive. Looking forward to starting the next book and getting into it, especially knowing that's a little thicker and the books get, bigger as they go along. Eventually, I'll get to those 1,300 plus tome books. But as always, thank you for watching. Your stay is over. It is time to leave the Beats Motel. Thank you.